EQ is not something that we can actually exhaust the knowledge and learn in just an hour. A couple of years ago, when I delved into this, going through NLP sessions and some mindfulness program, trust me, it's really a journey. And currently, I'm still learning. In fact, what I do every year is I usually conduct about 5 to 6 different assessments on myself every year. So one is majorly focused on EQ, even though for this session, I'm not going to give you that intensive test. There's a short test for this session that I'm going to do. It's also part of the personal assessment. So it's focused on EQ just to briefly determine at the barest minimum your EQ level. So I'll share that link with you. Take the test. Then maybe when we come um, tomorrow might have a session. I'll see before we finish if we'll still have it. So EQ is something that, as I'm introducing to you today, make sure it doesn't end here. This is, for me, the most powerful interpersonal skill, or what we call soft skill. Most powerful. I mean it, most powerful. Because ingrained in it is the power of negotiation, is your effective communication skill, is your effective leadership skill, is your critical thinking, your uh, um, creativity. I mean, just name it. Every other soft skill are subsumed in EQ skill. So you want to ensure that you get better at EQ and you keep growing. So it's given that if you're able to grow more in your EQ skill, automatically you're going to be growing more. So I would rather focus more on, of course, it's not like I don't invest in other skills, but I'd rather invest more and give more attention in my EQ and continue to leverage on that, in order for me to be able to expand the usability of my mind. So you're going to be seeing some of these things, which I'll just introduce to you briefly, and maybe we'll take examples of, because I've shown 2 examples of 2 leaders, one in the public sector, another one in the private sector, and see how to tailor that vis-a-vis my personal experience too that I'll be mentioning to you. Again, when you are moving into the dimension of EQ, considering EQ as part of your upskilling, you are actually embracing the necessity for you to emerge as a leader. Okay, so EQ quickly puts you on the pedestal of leadership. So you can't avoid it. Once you start thinking and growing and developing EQ skill, the next level of your manifestation, the next level of your experience has to be on leadership, regardless of what level of leadership you are going to associate with, right? But it's definitely has to be the next level of your manifestation. So it's very important. And that's why you need to learn how to govern your emotions in order for you to be able to help to govern the emotion of other people. So within EQ, you are also going to see how the reflection of the way you're able to build and manage relationship, how these outplay. So that's why we had to have touched base on these other concepts and subject before getting to EQ. If you have started straight away with EQ, it will have been a mumbled conversation entirely. So when I'm saying some things about EQ, you will see that it's actually going to be a flow, like what happened yesterday. So here we want to see basically how you can master your emotions for personal and professional success, so that the concept behind it, you can embrace it, and you can put together every other thing we've been learning for the past 13 days to facilitate your growth and your development. Okay, so let's start with understanding what EQ is. What exactly is emotional intelligence? Um, Maybe I should just throw it out so that I can get your perspective on EQ. What do you think is EQ? Anyone? What do you think is emotional intelligence? Please help me out. Olale, you want to help us?
Hello?
Okay, yeah, Olale, please go ahead.
Need to understand and be able to handle your emotions, to know.
Sorry, I can't hear you clearly.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, this is better now.
Okay. So I said, I think it's the ability to be able to manage your emotions, to understand them, to to know how to use it at um at certain periods. So being able to understand your emotions, being self-aware.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Though that's just one side. EQ is two-sided. I mean, it's like a coin. So you have a side which can be the head, and then the other side can be the tail. So the two is what makes the entire concept of EQ. So you've just spoken one side, which is the head, and that has to do with you. There's other side of EQ that has to do with non-you, which is others. Okay. So when you're talking about EQ, you are basically talking about how you can understand and manage your own emotion first, starting with self-awareness, in order for you to be able to manage, understand and manage other people's emotion. It's just as simple as that. So the process is what you need to now understand or know in order for you to be able to engage within the process. Just like when we're talking about self-awareness from day one, it's not as simple as what people think. I mean, as simple as you, Demilade, me, Bolon, as simple as we supposed to be. We are not just as simple as that. Our life is so complicated that you need to demystify it many times. When you look at the four envelopes of self, you need to unseal and be able to unpack and unbox to know what's right there inside. And that's what self-awareness is about, individual. Knowing, understanding, knowing, and managing your known self, your blind self, and your revealed self. Okay. All of these things are what unpacks the knowledge about you. So getting to know that is not just enough. It's just 50% of EQ. And you cannot successfully drive meaningful relationship with just you knowing yourself and being able to, well, see, I've realized this in many relationships when people begin to have conflict, and because from the sense of mutuality, it's logical that you are not one-sided. You're not just only thinking about yourself. Otherwise, that will always drive selfishness. It's going to drive self-interest. You have to balance things by, as you think about yourself, you think about the other, right? So the other side, which is the tail, is in EQ, is how to think about others by knowing what others is all about, and then empathically, you know, put yourself within the frame of the other and still be able to achieve success in relationship. That's what EQ is all about. And it takes you through a lot of journey. You see how complicated it is to know yourself. Now adding the knowledge of knowing someone else that is almost impracticable to know. So there are a lot of skills, a lot of things that will enable you to know other people. I came across this statement from Moswell.com, and I think I need to project it to us. You know, research proves EQ to be a strong predictor of happiness and professional success. So you see, when I tell you that in life, when you have above 80% EQ, I mean, the last rating I did for myself, my EQ is like around 89%. I'm still trusting that I will enter into the range of 90 plus, 90 plus. So at 80% upward, you stand a chance when you are engaging within 5 to 15 minutes. Usually mine is between 10 to 15 minutes, but there are some people that within 5 to 10 minutes of engagement with high EQ, you can understand the basic things you need to know for a meaningful relationship with such a person. Of course, when I'm talking about relationship, I'm not talking about close relationship now. For engagement, you're talking about um, um, establishing um, win-win, establishing the early path of acquaintance. You know, so this is what this research has proven. And when you have a conversation with someone and the person is leaving that seat, imagine someone you meet for the first time and having had a conversation, the person is walking away. Naturally, if you have disposed high EQ, the person will necessarily walk away with so much joy. And that's why I'm telling you the other day that anybody that passes through you, the level of impact you determine, will be defined by how much of EQ you have expressed or you have EQ skill you have used in your interaction. Because it will create a lasting impact that will resonate and keep memories in the heart of the person. This is how EQ works. And it looks like magic. Trust me. It looks like magic. And sometimes I always ask myself that how come this God is just so awesome and so wonderful that out of all the skills, you see professors, you see people with high um, intellectual quotient, that's IQ, necessarily don't have high EQ because they are two different things. However, you may not have high IQ, but you have high EQ. You still make enough impact. There was a day I did analysis on Wole Soyinka. I mean, I'm sure that many of us know Wole Soyinka, right? He finished from Buffalo University, then University of Ife with the third class, right? And many of his colleagues back then would have thought him to be a mediocre thereabouts. But this man emerged out of the blues, became in the mid 70s, if I'm not mistaken, or late 70s, emerged and became the first Nobel laureate in literature, I think in Africa, of course in Nigeria, first Nobel laureate and the only Nobel laureate in Nigeria, right? How did this man get to that point of that kind of relevance with his third class? As if that was not enough. I also came across one of my senior colleagues while I was on campus studying my undergraduate. You know, everybody used to look at this person as a riffraff, as someone who doesn't have purpose in life, just wandering up and down, had spent many years in school and all of that. And each time I engage him, he's always telling me about utopian ideas and visions. I mean, imagine someone way back in 2004, 2005, thinking about how life would be in 2050, 2040. The person looks so weird to everybody, but I could relate with him. Even lecturers will intentionally fail him for him just to prove a point to him that is not normal, kind of. No, I can't forget the guy, honestly, because it seems I'm the only person that understood him. And each time we had conversation, it's always like, wow, I kind of like get full grab of him and all of that. On project, he's always happy that he can share ideas with me and all of that. It took me long before I understood that kind of a disposition. So you come across people with weird ideas, with just crazy about things. But hey, how will you relate with such people for you to be able to get the best? And you don't just throw them behind the scene and think that they are irrelevant. Trust me, the last time I checked, these are the kind of people that turn around things, events, not normal people that think outside the box. And that's why I'm telling you that EQ is the house, is more like the system that contains every other power skills. I talk about creativity, critical thinking, effective leadership, talk about power of negotiation, talk about innovation. All of these things are subsumed, they're embedded in EQ. And if you are able to get a full grasp of it, trust me, you are going to cause a lot of disruption, a lot of disruption. So these are part of the things that a lot of research has established. So in governing your emotions, in managing yourself, in order to be able to help manage other people, so that you get win-wins and you'll be able to leverage an opportunity with people when you connect with them or network, is what EQ is all about. And until you begin to embrace it, you may not be able to achieve success at the level at which you need to achieve success. So you see what I mean yesterday when I was defining success as a journey. You might think that you've actually succeeded. You only need to have new experiences and upskill for you to know that what you think is success is not really success. To just have a first class is not success, right? To just have what's it called 2-1 is not a success. To have third class is not a success. It's neither is a failure. Okay, so otherwise, person that had a third class should never amount to anything again in life. Likewise, the person that had a first class should remain or should be the most successful person. But hey, how we explain that even people with third class are the one employing people with 2-1 with first class? How are you going to explain that? It's proven almost about 75% of top CEOs managing high-ranked companies, global companies. They are people who are either in the mid IQ or low IQ. They have mid IQ or low IQ. They are not necessarily successful as people think when it comes to ratings of IQ. Rather, they have high EQ. So when you go to Ivy League universities, most of the things that they will teach and embed in the courses, Harvard, in Caltech, in Oxford, Cambridge, all of these universities, you see that they emphasize more on soft skills EQ. In fact, at a postgraduate level, at professional course level, management, top management course level, most of the content have things to do around EQ, and it's because of research that have been done, proving that EQ is the most powerful skill that leaders need to acquire in order for them to emerge as either transformative leader or strategic leader in the world. So these are part of the things that you also need to embrace in order for you to be able to make sense out of your pursuit of purpose and success that you want to attain. Okay, so there are 5 core elements that explains EQ, and I will simply explain each of these 5. Okay, number 1 is the self-awareness. I'm not going to repeat this because we've dealt so much about it. Self-awareness, getting to know yourself and how to um, regulate yourself. That's what self-awareness is. Then you now move into self-regulation, because self-regulation is basically talking about you putting certain controls in your life. You simply talk about self-control. Okay. Self-awareness give you this inclination of the knowledge, basic knowledge about yourself. All those tests, personality tests we took is for you to be self-aware. You know you're a sanguine, you know you are dominantly a melancholy. These are your traits, these are your strengths, these are your weaknesses. This is your value system, these are your core beliefs. These are the things that motivate you to pursue your purpose, to remain on track, even in spite of distractions, to use this kind of skills that you can quickly learn and all of that. I mean, that is the meaning of self-awareness. What works for you, right? What works for you. And it's been proven over a period of time. So that's your self-awareness. But your self-regulation is knowing all of these things. How then do you keep everything under check? How then do you monitor? How then do you ensure that is within the level of your control and you don't have to impulsively respond to other people, so that you can easily eliminate competition? So self-regulation helps you to deal with the issue of competition. When you see people who are always having that mentality of competing with other people, oh, this person has achieved this, oh, this person is now on this level in life, so and we're supposed to be contemporary age. So those kind of people have lack of self-regulation. It means that their life is given to competition because they lack control, right? You don't, other people's achievements shouldn't be your source of uh, uh, um, motivation, as it were. Remember, I told you your motivation comes from within. not because you are hearing someone tells you you are this, you are that, you can do it, blah, 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 blah. They are not sustainable, even though they might instantaneously help to trigger efforts, to trigger actions, but they are not sustainable. They won't keep the action going. They won't keep you going until you have located something and strike something within yourself, that you connect with, talking about the self-awareness. Until then, I mean, you won't be able to consistently pursue. So self-regulation helps. And there are many ways by which you can regulate yourself. Many, many ways. There are many ways. Sometimes you have to create certain monuments. There are things in my life which I've established as monuments. A very good example of these monuments are my failures. That might sound very, very, very funny. That's why each time I fail, I don't forget. I just log it. I can tell you repeatedly in the last 10 years, things I've done and I failed at. Because each time I remember them, they are the reasons why I would never give up. Then the second monument are my achievements, because they remind me that I didn't give up. Don't forget, I'm not going to give up. Then the reminder that I did not give up. Those two things are very powerful. And that is why I told you that failure yesterday, that failure is all subsumed in success, is pretty much part of success. So when you shy away from failure, or when you fail in attempting to take action, singularly because you're afraid of failing, then that means that you are mediocre and you don't have proper regulation of yourself. So self-regulation starts when you begin to see that you have overcome the fear of failure. Self-regulation comes when you see that regardless of what you understand about yourself, you are always having the initiative to move forward. Okay, so this is going to really help you. Then the third one talks about motivation. You know, the seat of motivation is actually in you, not in anything else. Some people join a lot of clubs, join several groups, several communities, singularly because they want to get motivation, or even look up to people they call their role models because they feel their motivation should come, right? Unfortunately, this doesn't work out. This is not how motivation works. Motivation should be harnessed from within. And many times they are seated in your emotions, depending on how you're able to govern your emotions. Your emotions, if they're not properly governed, turn to a negative attitude. Okay. Someone who is naturally angry and doesn't know how to control himself or herself, you always see negative disposition. You always see the weakness exhibited. And then sometimes you repel people because there is no way you are exhibiting your weaknesses. Maybe you are lying repeatedly, or you are someone who is dishonest, or you are someone that cannot be trusted. You are someone who is not sincere. You will definitely repel people from you. So these are part of things that will show lack of motivation. But imagine when you are always showing your dominant strength, right? You are showing your dominant strength, someone who is very sincere, someone that can be trusted. People can go to sleep and put tasks in your hands. You always take initiative in solving problems naturally, okay? Naturally, as you move and tend and exercise more action on these strength or these areas of your life where you gain strength and grow stronger, naturally you'll be motivated. You don't need anybody to tell you some of these uh, 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 um, repetitions, which are more like just schisms. People will tell you, uh, if you play the parts, you can practically pursue to I mean, when they start using some rhymes and all of that, and people would think that's what spikes, that motivates the heart. No, necessarily, it doesn't sustain. Even if it ignites, it will just flees off. It's just going to blow off like a flame. So you need to be able to have a command on your personality. You need to have a command of your personality. And from time to time, even when people naturally will think that you're not going to be motivated, you see that there's going to be strength that comes, there's going to be energy that will flow from your strengths and give you, when you read in the scriptures and the Bible says, and David encouraged himself, You wonder, where does the encouragement come from? In the midst of all the castigations, in the midst of all the persecution, the midst of people wanting to even kill him because of his poor judgment and decision, right? So you need to look always within yourself and believe in yourself and know that either your past failure or your past achievement are more than enough to push you going and keep you going and keep you focused on whatever your pursuits are. Then empathy. Now to begin to talk about outward, because the first three I talked about focused on the head of the coin, which is you. Now I want to talk about the other side of the coin, which the last two elements focused on, and that's others or non-you. Okay, so empathy is the first element of EQ that focused on others. And what exactly is empathy talking about? You having a full understanding. I mean full, not partial, full, because if you don't have a full understanding, you cannot just be in the person's shoes. Okay, you can't just feel, you can't understand where the shoe is pinching. You can't understand how the person feels. So you try as much as possible to be in the person's position. That imagine, what would you do? Okay, what would you do if you were to be in the person's shoe? If you were to pray the person to put on, the facade, to put on the personality of the person going through whatever it is that you're putting the person through in your conversation engagement. So that's what empathy is all about. And you need to develop this skill in order for you to make sense out of your engagement with anyone. And part of empathy also includes having that skill of active listening. Active listening is one of the power skills. If you don't have good grasp on active listening, you cannot be empathetic. The reason why many of our leaders are not successful, especially in this part of the world, is because they are not active listener. They don't hear people. I'm not talking about people just speaking to them, but their mindfulness is not connected to the pains, the sufferings, the loud voices that comes out of the the disposition. When people come out, they protest against the government, they are speaking their pains, they are speaking, but the listening ears of our leaders had been blocked. So they are not given to actively, and it's a skill. But when you see a leader that is empathetic and has an active listening, that many people used to attribute this to Peter Obi, that is able to condescend to the level of the downtrodden, uplift them, sit with them, embrace them. This is what empathy is all about. You have to leave your mansion and go to stay in the village for you to be able to understand the way of life of those people if you want to connect with them. And the same way goes with if you are moving higher, not downwards the ladder. If you are moving higher to the top of the prison, you need to go into Aso Rock if you want to relate with the governor and understand what it means to be in that seat, in that position, right? You need to be able to relate at that level, hypothetically, for you to be able to understand how to. So you then put everybody on the same perspective, right? Otherwise, there's always going to be conflict if you don't establish empathy, if you don't establish all other things that string to form empathy, the active listening. Okay, if you don't put all those things together, it's going to be very difficult for you to be able to relate successfully with people. And the final one talks about the social skills. All these skills that helps you build successful relationship, that helps you develop, close rapports. Those are the things that social skill entails. As simple as your effective communication, your power of influence, your power of negotiation. Talk about your leadership skills. All of these things that enables you to develop, build close rapport and be able to bring people closer to you. If people cannot come at a close range where you establish vulnerability, then you cannot exhibit high EQ with them. I mean, you should not be afraid of people getting close, right? Like I mentioned yesterday, define your boundaries within the rapport. Once you have done that, then you continually self-regulate And that is why when once you know yourself, you know your limits, you know your expanse, you don't then begin to put yourself in temptations. There are some people that they are very vulnerable. I mean, sorry, they have this weakness like a kleptomaniac. Anything that has to do with finance there is their weakness. Such a person, you don't put yourself in a situation whereby at every leadership position you find yourself, you always want to be the accountant or the one that you just end up becoming like Judas, who would then betray the entire community or the people you're in relationship with just stipends or with just a flip of coin and all of that. So you need to understand this. And that is what social skills is all about. How you're able to govern your own behavior as well as ensure that you don't maximize the weaknesses of other people. Rather, you don't take advantage of the weakness of other people. Rather, you maximize their strength, so that you can then inspire, that bond or the connection or network to achieve success. What are the benefits of IEQ? Number one, for personal, you look at IEQ in your journey. In the long run, you are going to develop courage. You're going to develop the boldness and the confidence that is required for you to be audacious. So if there's anything that EQ has helped me to do in life is to be audacious. And don't forget, yesterday or was it 2 days ago when I was talking to you about thinking big. EQ is one of the things that will inspire you to always think big because nothing will be too impossible for you to 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 attempt or to pursue. That audacious that you can. When you hear the president of the United States across different generations tell you, we can, you can, all this stuff. I mean, all these maxims, all this confidence come from the level of their EQ. So there's no way you want to be the leader of the most powerful nation in the world, in terms of economy and everything, and you don't have an IEQ. You are gone for it, right? So that's one of the first critical things that you're going to achieve when you begin to build high level of EQ in yourself, 80% and above. You see the kind of confidence. There is nowhere you cannot go to. And that's why they tell you usually people who have high EQ, they are good speakers, they are intelligent, so to speak. They will tell you they are genius, but it's not necessarily because they are genius, they're intelligent, not because they have high EQ. IQ, sorry, IQ, but because the translation of the disposition and the outlook of their EQ is proving true confidence and courage and boldness and the audacity that they have high intelligence. So you see how this thing translates. So I would rather pursue high EQ than to pursue high IQ. Okay. Then you also have this benefit in terms of you being able to develop a meaningful report. Don't forget, I told you how important rapport is, you know, because you need people for you to survive. We talked about developing teams yesterday. If you have this high EQ, you're able to successfully develop teams, creatively develop teams that will help you achieve your goal. Then, of course, your mental health. And I would like to spend more time before we round up in the next few minutes about the importance of EQ towards your mental health, because this is where the concept of psychological mindfulness comes in, right? You just see that when everybody is down in their moment, things are not happening really, but people are just moody and all of that. You have a different disposition. You always maintain, a proper mental health. And of course, when people, especially when you get to a point in leadership, if care is not taken, if you don't have IEQ, you can go mad. You can just behave irrationally. When you see someone who is just behaving anyhow, using power to muzzle things and just bamboozle things and just take advantage of other people because now they have power, they have the money, they're highly elevated, is because of their lack of EQ. So you see some leaders, you can easily tell the level at which they operate, right? And you wonder why they even find themselves at the level of leadership, and they'll tell you they're opportunists, right? That's the way I classify such leaders. They're opportunists. They didn't work themselves way through the ladder. They didn't go through the journey of emerging as a leader. So, like I always tell people in my leadership classes when I engage, is the fact that you have two classes of leaders: those that made and those that are born as leaders. I rather prefer those that are made as leaders who go through the journey, rather than those that are made as leaders. Because those that are made as leaders eventually would not learn all the necessary rudiments. Like you find people who are born with silver spoon in King's Palace, or their heir apparent, who necessarily would in the future, nearest future, become, so they would necessarily wake up one morning and then maybe by fortune or by incident become king and assume position. Such people are not prepared. Such people, even though it is incumbent on them by the virtue of their birth, it is incumbent that they emerge as leader. But you will see the difference whether they're going to be successful or not. So I rather prefer the making than the birth. The making can create and make anything, but the birth will only stifle, the chances of you succeeding. Then for professional benefits, you have you growing, in strong towards effective leadership. There is no way, like I mentioned, that you will begin to grow in EQ and everything you do, you will not stand out as a leader. It's not possible. That's been the journey and the story of my life. Everywhere I find myself, it's just a matter of time before I'm singled out as being a leader. Just a matter of time. And it's not because of contest, it's not because I struggle. It's not because I walk myself or I manipulate processes or things. No, just there doing my thing. It's just a matter of time before your disposition singles you out. So high EQ is very, very powerful. Then you also talk about how you handle your teams, how you handle your teams. The impact is going to be felt, it's going to be obvious. The level at which you translate, people into excellence, the level at which you impact them, your team, with the sense of, because it's now more like an infectious syndrome. That's one of the things that EQ translates into. It becomes more like a syndrome, right? Anybody that come close within your rapport has to be infected, right? So you will see the level of improvement within your team, except those that choose not to be within the close rapports, which you need to always refine. Then you also have the sense of better decision. See, these are things that emanate from my life because I've observed consistently, right? Consistently. It may take me a couple of time before I make decision, but when I decide, I always get it right, right? And sometimes I don't even necessarily have to so much labor, you know, in prayers to do certain things intuitively because you have grown your EQ and tune it to the to resonate so much spiritually that when you make a decision, you just know that this thing can only be right. It can't be wrong. I mean, I don't have a better way to explain it. It's just to be experienced practically for you to understand. When you sharpen your EQ so much, when you grow your EQ so much, you discover that certain things you will not be put under pressure. Nobody will tell you deadlines and all of that, and you are put under pressure, especially when you are moving into some dimensions in your professional career, when you need to take decisions on investments, decision on transitioning, decision on, making choices of even selections of certain things. You will just discover that you will always make the right decision and have the right judgment. You know, uh, uh, not because you have market indices, but it just comes natural, right? So this is one of the things that happened with IEQ. And then the final one, which also resonates so much with me, has to do with the issue of multitasking. If you go 1001 times on internet, even use ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to explain to you the concept of multitasking, in the end, they will always advise you that don't multitask. But here is my life to prove all of these, their so-called concept of multitasking wrong. Because what exactly is the concept? What exactly is underscoring multitasking? You being able to successfully thrive in doing more than one thing at a time, right? So the question is now, how do you go about doing it? EQ helps you a whole lot in achieving that. It's naturally going to help you, right? You'll be able to know the sense of designation, the sense of responsibility. You'll be able to have a good grasp on your time management. So all of these things add up, and it's going to help you elevate yourself. How many of us have heard about uh, cognitive psychology? How many of us have heard about cognitive psychology? Or what do you know oh, okay. No, doctor, don't talk. I don't want you to talk. Let someone else talk. I know definitely you'll have something to say about it. Can someone explain what you understand by cognitive psychology? Am I assuming nobody else knows apart from Dr. Flashade? Okay, what do you understand by cognition? I mean, the word cognition, what does it mean? Okay. Um, so I have many assignments I'm going to give you. Yeah. So let me just quickly breeze on this because time is fast spent. There's something so important that you need to understand when we are talking about EQ. Okay, you trying to understand and manage your emotion. There are so many things in this our small head, in this human brain. There are so many things coded and encrypted there that it will take conscious effort for you to be able to get the best out of your mind, right? Because you want to understand your emotion. The seat of emotion is your mind, the human mind. Okay, so understanding human mind, starting from yourself, how you understand your mind, and then emotion being one of the features that you find in your mind, is a whole lot of facts. But hey, psychology has helped us to demystify this. And that is why I was asking about the issue of cognition. Okay, because what that gives us is you are able to, through certain activities, okay, through certain, maybe on a consistent basis, when you begin to carry out certain things, as simple as you going to gym, or you taking a walk, listening to music, I know, saying some repetitive words. I'm just saying, I mean, these are part of ways by which psychology will tell you, if you want to brainwash people. I don't know how many of us have read about the experience of people during the, what's the name of this guy that killed over 2 million Jews, Adolf Hitler. During the time of Adolf Hitler, when he was waging war, in the whole USSR, when he was waging war, Germany and USSR fights, they had Auschwitz um, um, center where they camped those that they, all the prisoners of war from Romania, from Kyrgyzstan, from Israel, and all of that, and they put them in Auschwitz. You know what they were doing? They were brainstorming them because the principle, I've forgotten some of these names. It was in German. You know, some of the things that was part of the perspective, the mindset, the orientation, the cognition of Hitler and all his cohort, all his army that time, he had brainwashed them, was the fact that the Jews brought the concept of a God whom is now destroying the entire world. So for them to be able to solve that problem, they need to eliminate the Jews, and for them to be able to eliminate that concept. So they wanted to, Adolf Hitler and his guys wanted to take off that mindset off the people so that nobody ever in life will be able to think about God, and see where it failed. So it puts many of those people in Auschwitz, it put them into brainwashing. And you know what they will do? An example, I remember when I was doing this in NLP class, they would tell us, number one is to go to number one, number three, number three. So you will be repeating this for months, for weeks, for months, days. In fact, if we had more time, I would have asked us to practicalize it. Saying one frail sentence repeatedly, when you do that repeatedly for a long period of time, usually is given in psychology that you repeat certain statements repeatedly, consistently for more than I've forgotten that number of hours, but put into days for about 7 days. And the eighth day, you will almost have forgotten your own name. Let me do that quick maths. You know, in a day you have 24 hours. So 24 times 7, that gives us the total number of hours. 24 hours in a day. Can someone help me out with calculator? I'm trying to establish a point here so that you see what this principle is all about. Someone grab a calculator. Uh,
Yes, sir.
yeah, so was it 24 times 7?
158,
158, 158
60,
hours.
68 hours,
168 hours. Yeah. So 168 hours, if you stay in one position and you repeatedly, consistently repeat a statement 168 hours, the next hour, 169, if they ask you what's your name, you will not remember. Isn't that powerful? That's the power of human mind. So when you see people indoctrinating, you know, the process of indoctrination, these are the things that they want to achieve, right? So it's the same way it works when you want to master, when you want to manage emotions, because it's all about the mind. So how do you do that? You have to engage yourself with some activities that establishes consistency. So the first one has to do with writing. You know, writing, you know, how much of these things, your vision, your goals, do you write them down? Do you inscribe them in such a way that you are seeing them on a daily basis? Remember, I told you all these things in the previous sessions when we were talking about goal setting. You have to write them down, project them on carbon boards where you can be seeing them on a daily basis so that you never forget. You know, so you need to put these things down. Your strengths, your weaknesses, you have to project them out for you to be able to see and know, right? So that you get to terms with it. The second one is now for you to practice mindfulness. Now, what exactly is mindfulness talking about? You are trying to put all your energy. There's something we call the mind energy, okay? So that you are not distracted, so that some other things are not preoccupying your mind. You know, you are focusing all the energy into one box, okay? And which is now the current situation. For instance, maybe you have a job you want to go and do tomorrow. I mean, sorry, you have an interview you want to go and do tomorrow, and you don't want anything to distract you. Mindfulness is, and guess what? If we are talking about mindfulness, I'm not saying that you should go and be doing yoga. I'm not saying you should go and be doing Zoroastrianism or you should go and be doing Buddhism or Judaism. No, because these are other forms of mindfulness which people have actually turned into religious practices. No, I'm not saying you should go and be doing Taoism and all of that. The simple concept of mindfulness is the fact that you are concentrating the energy of your mind and focusing it on a particular issue. For instance, as simple as meditation, you know, is a form of mindfulness. But the difference between meditation and mindfulness is a repeated for a longer period of time. Don't forget, I told you minimum of 168 hours, 7 days consistently. When you do that repeatedly, like going to gym on a daily basis without repetition, then you will see that you have strengthened the muscle of your mind to focus on that one singular thing. To the point that if they ask you any other thing, you can't remember any other thing other than this singular thing. So that's what mindfulness means. Then you can also engage in meditation. Meditation, unlike mindfulness, is something you do repeatedly, but not with that level of consistency. For instance, when you're meditating on a scripture, you put it on your head, or you're meditating on the subject, you put it on your head, then you look for things that will make you remember, right? So meditation is for remembrance, while mindfulness is for engaging through the use of energy. So you see sometimes, I mean, you must have even watched some of these things in movie, where through mindfulness, people are trying to engage the force of nature, maybe air, fire, or water or something like that. You know, those are the power of mindfulness compared to meditation that is just only for remembrance, right? Remembrance in the sense that you can then engage in conversation. You can then engage in meaningful conversation. So these things are going to really, really help you. For instance, how will meditation help you to organize your life and have a meaningful engagement, right? You have learned all these subjects I'm talking about. You don't need to turn them into mindfulness, right? You can use them for your meditation. You want to know more about reports, okay? Remind yourself, okay, these are these, and then you practice it, okay? Because sometimes just cramming does not make sense, especially if you don't have a magnetic brain. You might not necessarily remember, but when you practice, it's put in a repository in your mind that when you need it, it comes forth, right? So these are part of the things that you can embrace when you're having meditation. And of course, when you're going through trouble, I've tested this a lot of times. If I'm in a airplane at a high altitude and there's turbulence, when every other person is agitated, like I'm always calm. I'm always calm, singularly because I have a command of my emotion. The only thing I will experience is a change of breath. I don't know how many of us usually experience that, and which is a natural phenomenon because of our physiology. At high altitude, the higher you go, you know, the more you'll be seeing changes in your breathing pattern and the way you are going to be catching breath and all of that. So you will see, and our pharynx, the lungs, the nerves that connect your esophagus to our lungs and kidneys and all of that, also have some nerves and neurons that goes to our ears, to our nose and all of that. So you will see the changes even from your ears as well, right? So these are things that gives the consciousness to you, okay? It brings about some level of consciousness, but the highest consciousness comes when you now dwell on the subject, which is now the extent of mindfulness. Then the final one talks about the cognition, which I was talking about. And what cognition does is when you have gotten a full grasp, don't forget we are talking about how to manage emotions. And emotions can come with positive sanction or negative sanction. It can be a positive energy, it can be a negative energy. Negative energy in terms of anger, right? So how this works with cognition intuitively, by the time you have command of your mind, right, is by the time you are engaging, because cognition comes, you see the resemblance or the manifestation of your cognitive strength or your cognitive failure in engagement. It's not just enough to say, oh, I have a powerful cognition. No, it is when you engage that you're able to see the evidence of the level of your cognition. So when you engage with people and maybe someone provoke you, or someone strike you hard, or someone slaps you, or someone abuse you, right? You'll be able to see whether you have a full grip intuitively now, a full grip. And many a times, this is what happens to me. Many times, I see things through my cognition as a deja vu. I don't know whether you understand what I mean by deja vu, like seeing an incident happen before it originally happened. I'm going so deep in some things and I don't want to confuse you. Please, can you confirm if you're on the same page with me?
Yes, sir.
Hello, are you on the same page with me, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have I confused you up to this point?
No, sir.
Did you all follow me up to this point? Did you follow through up to this point?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yes,
let me
sir.
just, yeah, thank you. Let me just hit the points. The climax of your understanding of your emotions seated in your mind is when you are able to have a full grip, a command in situations of how your emotions is going to be exhibited, how be it positive or negative. And that is what your cognition entails, right? You are able to have a foresight. I'm careful of using some of these words because they may not, you know, 100% represent the import, right? But in order for you to be able to understand, for instance, the deja vu and all of that, you have a foresight, you have a foreknowledge. Okay, when they are telling you that someone can see the future or something like that, this is where all these things begin from. So it's not like someone is using juju or is using this. It's all about the practice. It's nature. When you repeat an instance, when you repeat an activity over a long period of time, you begin to see a lot of deja vu around it. You begin to have some kind of level of foresight because the forces of nature understand all of these things and they work in resonance with our mind. Okay. So when people are saying, oh, blah, 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 you can see the consistency in someone's behavior. You can tell the next level of action, not because you are a seer or you're, I mean, it's just that simple. Okay. If you have good command of your cognitive intuition, right? You can intuitively tell what the next level. So when I tell you that I can predict someone's action, I can read someone's mind. This is exactly what I mean. And usually, like maybe myself and you were having conversation and we've spoken for like the past 5 minutes. By the time I'm saying the next 6 minutes, whatever it is that you have in your mind might necessarily be what I've just spoken, something like that. And at times it will have been that it had played out deep seated in my mind that propelled me to say it out. Hmm. So it gives a brighter and a better perspective to things. So if you have not been able to get to that point in whatever situation you find yourself, if you have high EQ, what will usually happen is you will not take a move. And that is very, very essential. That is very important. So when you see someone who is irrationally doing things, illogically doing things, it's because they don't have a full grip of their cognitive balance. They have not been able to frame themselves in such a way that they have a command on it. So they will have done things and now start withdrawing. They will have taken action and now start, struggling with the fact that, oh, I never meant that. No. If you have a high EQ, you will not do what you don't mean. And you will not take a leap when you are not convinced. So it's very, very powerful. So how then do you develop all these things? Again, the practice is very, very important, and that's where mindfulness comes in. You need to engage the same way you want to go to gym on a daily basis. The little things you do across different actions, you need to start putting these things to test. How often do you take decisions? Do you take decisions irrationally? Do you take decisions instantaneously? Now you know better because you need to always get to the level of conviction before you decide. Okay, you don't take decision uh, out of your mind. You have to take it with a level of understanding. Then you also need to practice the control. So I would naturally put, first of all, a control within my report. And part of the control is just simply you accepting your value system. Hopes, time is fast spent. You accepting your value system. So if you ask me, your greatest control are your value system, nothing else. You can't use any human being, you can't use any competitive value. It's just your own value system that you set as your control. And then you keep practicing it, except you don't mean those values. If you mean it, for instance, if your value is about sincerity, the more you practice about sincerity, the more you exhibit emotional balance. Because anything that does not align with that value cannot be what will be your limit. Okay. But your control becomes your limit. Below sincerity, they won't find you. Above sincerity, they won't find you. Unsincerity is what you will be embraced on, to the point that your value becomes synonymous to who you are. And then you talk about how you now begin to exhibit, because the more you exhibit your social skills, your interpersonal skills, the more you are growing in them. So don't be afraid. For instance, when I was talking about leadership, when they are looking for people who are going to emerge as leaders, when there are opportunity for leadership, you don't shy away from it. Maybe because you feel you don't have the experience. No, you are audacious and you're going to make attempts at it. Even if you fail, it's a learning curve. So these are part of the things that I'm going to skip this and then just wrap up. These are part of the things that your EQ will give you. Your confidence level is going to increase tremendously, and the things you think you can't do, you begin to see yourself doing them, right? Either you're achieving success in the interim or on the short run, but in the long run, because it's a bigger picture, you are definitely going to achieve success. I'll use, because of time, I'm not going to talk again about the two leaders I wanted to talk about, in the public and the private sector. So, but let me use myself as an example. I remember the first stench I have towards leadership. I think I shared this. That was back in school, and they were just going. I mean, just a public announcement: who is going to do this, blah blah blah, and all of that. And all of a sudden, someone like me, that was a mediocre, someone like me that believes I stammer, I do this, I just jump out, I will. And everybody was just like, "Who is this guy? Where is it coming from?" and all of that. And lo and behold, I took up the volunteer role and pioneered a movement on campus for the 5 years I was on campus. And that movement synonymous became my name, right? So you never can tell. And that was just the springboard. I was able to break off the yoke of timidity, the yoke of not believing in oneself, right? I was able to. And now, if you see the level of passion on things that I believe as a cause, no, it's definitely going to be evident. So it's a journey. So you need to also decide on whether you want to start your journey now, by being audacious and taking decisive step towards opportunities that will elevate your emotions rather not subdue your emotions. Because when you continue to confine yourself within yourself by not seizing opportunities, by not connecting, by not networking, you are going to continually subdue yourself. Even when you are practicing and all of that, you won't have a space and you don't have the chance or the opportunity for you to practice whatever it is that you have harnessed the energy and the force nature to channel towards yourself. So these are just a few things I think I need to push forward to you about EQ. There's so much. I'm going to share a book written by Cole Gilman to you because it's something that you need to read. Trust me, you need to read that book. It's changed my life, and I believe it's also going to change your own life too. So I'm going to stop here and ask if you have any question. Any question? Any question? I said a lot, I know for sure, but whatever it is that
Thank
you
you.
grab from this session, I would like you to give me feedback. Does it relate with you? Does it resonate with you?
Thank you very much
Yeah,
for
Pichman.
tonight.
Yeah, go ahead.
My question is from your talk from the at the beginning, you mentioned IQ and EQ comparing both. So can one believe that someone with a very high EQ will be able to maximize his IQ, either a low IQ or mid IQ? Can we use that from the talk, the way you mentioned, you compare both from the beginning, the talk.
Okay, so let me just give you one of the principles that Daniel Goleman, I mean, this is one of the proponents of emotional intelligence. In fact, he popularized it because EQ has always been, but it never turned into a knowledge area for many people. So he popularized it. He has published a lot of books. So one of his books is what I'm going to be sharing with you. So here is the gist about IQ. IQ basically, you develop IQ through knowledge acquisition. For instance, the more you do research on academics, the more you study, the more you get certification, the more you get degrees, all of those stuff, the more you increase your IQ. Okay. And sometimes if you want to even, so when I tell people that you do certification, it's because you want to test and prove your knowledge on a subject. Okay. That is IQ. These are IQ evidences, right? For you to be sure that you know this subject, you know this thing, you have an IQ test, either in mathematics, in English language, in project management, whatever. There's always a way to test your knowledge on those things. That is IQ. We are talking about human being, right? We are talking about emotions seated in human mind. There are a lot of things about human mind that even science has not been able to unravel. Because, I mean, if you understand the dimension of metaphysics, that's why I don't want to go deep in there so that I don't confuse you with some of these deep subjects about EQ. Science has not been able to unravel it. Do you know that you can get to a point in mindfulness whereby you experience transient translation? I mean, you are there, but you are not really there. You are being translated into the supernatural realm to the point that you begin to see apparition. Your mind is elevated beyond the natural realm in such a way that you begin to see visions, you begin to see things, unprecedented things. That is how powerful the human mind is. And unfortunately, not even the AI now that we are having, AI cannot perfectly predict the future. AI cannot deja vu. Those codes, they can't deja vu. And how did I know that? There are many predictions in the past that talked about what will be happening in today's world. Many of those things are not happening. Many of those things are not happening. So I'm talking about how you can have a full, and this has nothing to do with whether you know a subject or you don't know a subject. It may help, it may be a leverage, but it necessarily doesn't have anything to do with it. And that's why I was making a comparison with someone that they said is a failure in IQ, and now is conquering and succeeding in every other aspect of his pursuit. So I'm saying this and pushing it forward to you. Whatever journey you have gone in your IQ pursuit, your academic pursuit, maybe you have been failing, like me in some instances, or you have been excelling and you want to make fool of yourself that, oh, I have a very IQ. I finished with first class. I finished with 2-1 and all of that. Oh, I have a very good job and all of that. Good. But there is more greater responsibility you need to embark on this journey. And that is for you to be able to have a command on your emotion, on your mind, that you can now harness the force of nature in order for you to be able to get the best out of everything that you're pursuing. Because as you're pursuing, there's also going to be the winds and the tides of life, of nature that will be fighting against you. How are you going to, your knowledge of mathematics, calculating physics, and doing the speed of light, nanoseconds, all this flash and all of that, is not going to solve the problem for you, unfortunately. Or even you thinking about thermodynamics and all of that, for you to be able to move against the tide of wind and life, is not going to solve the motion. How can you explain why two professors married are fighting on a daily basis? Is it because they don't have IQ? No. But unfortunately, the science will not solve such problem. So that's the difference, So don't mix it up. There are two different things. You may be very high here and you may be zero on EQ. Whereas you may be zero on this side and you may be very high on this side. The important thing is rather pursue this so that this will now be a major influence to your IQ. And it then determines, it then goes by whatever your EQ is directing you towards in relationship, in the pursuit of your goals, then you can now begin to develop yourself in terms of your IQ in those areas. That's why I told you from day one, most of the things I acquire in terms of my IQ, the certifications, the programs, the degrees, they were all things that make sense with my purpose. So I didn't just push myself to go and do this and do that. They all add up because they are like door openers. They are opportunities, even though I may not be using some of them to be making financial gains and all of that, but they all make sense in giving me leverages in some instance. So that's how it works. I don't know if this helps.
Thank you very much, sir. It helps.
You're most welcome. Any other feedback? Yeah, thank you, Dr. Falashade. So we're rounding up now. Any other feedback? Any other thing? Question? Comment? Did I confuse you? Did I complicate issues? Okay, don't forget the assignments. I'm going to communicate it with you. Make sure you lay your hands on them and let's see where you stand in all of this. Okay, thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.